You ever find yourself thinking, what's my business really worth? Or maybe a company you follow?
Oh, definitely. And it's so easy to just fixate on getting that one single number.
Right. But what if just focusing there means you miss something bigger?
Exactly. What if actually understanding your business's value could kickstart some serious growth?
Yeah.
We're not really just chasing a number today.
Yeah.
We want to look at how valuation can be like a mirror, showing you where you are now,
Okay. A
and a
mirror.
map to
Oh,
kind of guide you forward, and a measure of how far you've come, seeing the whole picture.
I like that. Mirror, map, measure. And for this deep dive, we're leaning on Darrell Amy's article, What's Your Business Really Worth? How to Find Out and Grow It. It's really good stuff.
Yeah, he lays things out really clearly,
Mm.
especially how evaluation can be a tool, for actually expanding the business.
Mm-hmm.
And he starts by outlining basically three main ways to figure out what a business is worth. It's helpful to get a handle on these first.
Okay, yeah. Let's break those down. First up is asset-based valuation. What's the main idea there?
Well, at its core, asset-based is it's looking at the tangible stuff, the assets a business has.
Right.
And then you subtract what it owes the liabilities. It's very, balance sheet focused.
Concrete. So you're tallying up the equipment, property, cash, stuff like that, and then taking away loans, debts. Seems pretty straightforward.
It is, conceptually. And there are like two main ways within that. You've got book value, which uses the original costs, what's on the balance sheet historically.
Okay.
And then there's adjusted net asset value. That one tries to reflect the current fair market value of everything right now.
Gotcha. So book value for my old van is maybe what I paid minus depreciation, but the adjusted value is what I could actually sell it for today.
Exactly. That difference, reflecting today's reality, is key.
And who's typically using this method?
Usually accountants, financial pros, often for specific things like tax reporting. Or, unfortunately, in situations like bankruptcy or liquidation, then the focus is really just on the hard value of what's left.
Yeah, that tracks. It's about the tangible assets.
Okay.
So what's the second path Darrell talks about?
The second one is income-based valuation. Now, here the focus totally shifts. It's not about what the business owns, it's about what it's expected to earn.
Future earnings.
Yeah, future potential.
Yeah.
The value comes from its profitability down the road.
Okay. That sounds more like what, say, an investor might be really focused on. How do you actually put a number on future potential, though?
Well, there are a couple of main ways. One is the discounted cash flow, or DCF. You hear that a lot.
DCF, right.
This means forecasting the cash you think the business will generate in the future.
Okay.
And then you discount that back to figure out what it's worth in today's money.
Discounting. Okay, why do you need to do that? Sounds a bit technical.
It is, but it's super important. That discount rate, it basically accounts for the risk.
Yeah.
The risk that you might not actually get those future cash flows.
Oh, okay. Risk.
Yeah, it looks at things like the cost of capital, how volatile the industry is, any risks unique to that specific company.
Right.
Think of it like this. If someone promises you $100 a year from now, and it's, say, the government, you'd value that pretty close to $100 today, right? It's safe.
Yeah, pretty much.
But if it's a brand new, risky startup promising that $100, you'd value it much less today. There's a bigger discount because there's more risk you won't get paid.
Okay, that makes it much clearer. So a higher discount rate means more risk, lower value today.
Exactly. And a lower rate means less risk, more confidence, so a higher present value.
Got it. And what's the other income-based method you mentioned?
That was the capitalization of earnings. It's generally simpler. You take earnings from a single period, divide by capitalization rate, and that gives you a valuation.
Simpler. When would you use that?
Often for businesses that have, pretty stable and predictable earnings.
Right.
Less fluctuation.
Okay. And who uses these income-based methods generally?
Again, accountants, valuation analysts often use these.
Yeah.
Especially for things like financial reports or maybe succession planning in a family business, or if someone's thinking about investing in the company.
All right. So we've got valuing based on assets, valuing based on future income, which brings us to number 3, market-based valuation. And this is where Darrell really connects it to growth, isn't it?
Yes, absolutely. This is where things get really interesting from a strategic viewpoint. Unlike the first two, market-based valuation looks outward.
Outward. How so?
Instead of just focusing inside your business, it looks at what similar businesses, in your industry have actually sold for recently.
So it's about real-world deals, comparing yourself to others.
Exactly. And there are two main parts to this. First is comparable company analysis. They often call it comps.
Comps, yeah.
You analyze recent sales of private companies that are similar to yours, size, industry, financials, that kind of thing, finding relevant benchmarks from the actual market.
Okay, I think I get that. It's like when you want to sell your house, you look at what similar houses nearby sold for, like Zillow comps.
It's a perfect analogy. Yes, exactly like that.
Okay.
The second part is market multiples. These are basically ratios, like price to revenue, or a really common one, price to EBITDA.
EBITDA, earnings before interest, taxes, depreciation, and amortization, a measure of profit.
Right. These multiples let you take your company's numbers, like your EBITDA, and translate them into a potential value range based on how the market is valuing similar businesses.
So if companies like mine are selling for, say, 5 times their annual earnings, I can apply that multiple to my earnings to get a ballpark value.
Precisely. And here's the growth angle Darrell emphasizes. Let's say businesses in your industry usually trade at maybe 4 times to 8 times EBITDA.
Okay, a range.
A market analysis helps you see where you fall in that range. But more importantly, it shows you what you could do to move towards that higher end, towards the 8x.
So it's not just the number, it's understanding why some companies get the 8x and others only get the 4x.
Exactly. It points to what the market rewards. Maybe it's a better growth strategy, stronger leadership, more recurring revenue, better operational efficiency, things like that.
That's really powerful. So it's about seeing what factors actually drive higher value in the real world.
You got it. And this is the key difference Darrell highlights. All three methods have their place, right? But he argues only the market-based approach gives you real strategic insight into what's happening outside your business.
Right.
And that understanding is really the foundation if you want to actively increase your company's value.
So asset and income are mostly inward-looking, but market-based gives you that crucial external view.
Yes, exactly. Most methods, like Darrell says, are introspective. Your balance sheet, your past performance, your forecasts, all internal. But if you're serious about boosting your business's value, you have to look outside.
Yeah.
You can just see how you stack up against peers.
See what the winners are doing differently.
Yeah. What are those high multiple companies doing that the market loves? And just as important, where are your own weaknesses, your blind spots?
So the asset value gives you a floor, maybe, but income and especially market value point towards the potential, the future.
Well put. And that's really where the power of this market approach comes in. Understanding those external dynamics, what really drives value in your specific market.
So what are the big advantages then of taking this market-based view?
Darrell points out a few key things. First, it really shows you what best-in-class looks like in practice.
That's just theory.
Right. By looking at companies that recently sold for top dollar, those high multiples, you get a clear picture of what buyers actually pay a premium for in your sector.
Things like?
Could be lots of things. Maybe it's a high percentage of recurring revenue, maybe a super experienced leadership team, maybe really scalable systems that are well documented, or just best-in-class profit margins for the industry. Seeing what the top players look like helps you set real goals and prioritize what you need to work on to match those market drivers.
That makes a ton of sense. Instead of just guessing what might work, you see what is working in the market.
The second big thing Darrell mentions is that market-based valuation clearly flags the gaps holding you back.
How so?
Well, if you see a competitor sell for, say, 10 times earnings, and you think you're maybe worth 4 times, that forces you to ask why. What's the difference?
And digging into that why gives you a roadmap, right?
Absolutely. It might uncover things like maybe you rely too much on 1 or 2 big customers, or your processes aren't written down, making it hard to scale. Or maybe you don't really have a clear growth strategy articulated.
So the gaps aren't just problems, they're your action items.
Exactly. They become your to-do list for boosting value.
Yeah.
That difference in multiples points right at where you need to focus.
Okay, seeing what best looks like, identifying your gaps. What's the third benefit?
The third one is that it gives you a clear path to actually grow your enterprise value. Once you understand what the market rewards, you can focus your energy, your resources, specifically on those things, those value drivers.
So it shifts your whole strategy, not just chasing more sales, but deliberately building value.
Precisely. It impacts almost everything. How you prioritize projects, who you hire for your leadership team, how you decide to reinvest profits.
Wow.
It turns valuation from just, a number you get once in a while into an actual playbook. A guide for building a business that's more valuable, more sellable, and, frankly, probably more scalable and successful long-term.
So it's not just a snapshot, it's more like a strategic compass, pointing towards what's possible.
That's a great way to think about it. Darrell really stresses that this approach isn't just about assessment now. It gives you that forward-looking view. It helps you align what you're doing strategically with what the market actually cares about.
Leading the company towards what the market values.
Yeah. It empowers you to be proactive, build relevance, scalability, sustainable success.
And this connects to his idea of valuation being the ultimate scorecard metric, right? When seen through this market lens.
Exactly. He argues that valuation, especially when you understand the market comms, is the ultimate kind of holistic measure of how well your company is really set up for success now and for scaling up later. It reflects how well your strategy, your operations, your leadership, how well it all aligns with what the market rewards.
So it's not just about revenue dollars, but the strength of the engine underneath.
That's it, exactly. Darrell talks about improving your value creation engines, the core systems and strategies.
Like what?
Things that drive recurring revenue, allow you to scale operations smoothly, build leadership depth, reduce business risks. When those engines are strong and getting better,
Yeah.
they don't just bump up revenue, they directly increase your company's valuation in the market significantly.
So focusing on those engines is the key to unlocking the potential that this market-based view reveals.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It doesn't just tell you what you're worth now. It lights up what's achievable down the road if you focus on the right levers.
This really does change how you ought to think about valuation, doesn't it? Darrell is basically saying ask different questions.
Totally. Instead of the usual, what's my business worth today, which can feel kind of limiting,
Yeah.
he pushes us to ask something more insightful, more action-focused. What's actually keeping my business from being worth more?
Oh, that's a big shift. From a static number to the dynamic factors behind the number.
Right. It moves you from passive acceptance to active influence.
Yeah.
And then, even more critically, he says follow that up immediately with, okay, what specific things can we do, like right now, to start closing that gap?
That's where the strategy kicks in, where the work begins.
Exactly. That's where you start making real improvements.
So a market-based valuation done right with proper guidance.
Yeah.
It's not just about getting a number. It's about getting a vision.
Yes. A vision for growth and insight into what buyers actually care about, what they prioritize. And that empowers you to make deliberate, smart moves to systematically grow your valuation over time, make it a much more attractive, valuable asset.
So the main takeaway for you listening is probably that you deserve more than just a number. You deserve, well, a plan for growth.
Yeah, a roadmap.
Right.
And it sounds like this market-based valuation approach is a powerful way to get both the number and the roadmap.
It shifts the whole conversation from a backward-looking grade to a forward-looking strategy.
Absolutely. Building a truly valuable and ultimately sellable business asset.
So maybe as you think about this deep dive, just consider this. What's maybe one single action, something concrete you could take, maybe soon, to start exploring that gap?
Yeah, the gap between where your business is now, value-wise, and where its potential market value might be.
It's really just about making that mental shift, right? And starting to think strategically about how you can actively close that value gap.